Hello everyone, and welcome back to day 3 of our 7-day IT Cyber Security Bootcamp. On day 1 and 2, we already covered a lot. We've covered password policies and how to properly implement them. We've covered Windows updates and how you need to have policies to enforce those. And today we're going to cover an area that has a lot of material to cover. We're going to talk about viruses, malware, and what you need to do to prevent those. The virus protection landscape has changed a lot in the last few years, and I want to make sure that you're getting the most value out of what you're using, and that is truly, protecting you from malware, ransomware, and all the bad stuff that can happen to you. Before we get started, though, I'd like to say that all practices, processes, and advice provided during our bootcamp is just meant to be informational, and all precautions must be taken to back up, protect your systems before any changes are made to your configuration files, registry files, or software installations. Network Computer Solutions assumes no liability for any harm or damage caused by you acting on our advice. NCS recommends that all work be performed by a certified and trained IT technician. And all the trademarks of all the software we mentioned in this course remain the property of their respected owners. Let's review what we did on day 2. First, we talked about how you must understand there are different types of Windows updates, and some are important, some are critical, and how to implement those. We talked about patch management policies and enforcement for all employees. We talked about patch management using group policies to automate the procedure so your employees can't make a bad decision. We also talked about local policies when you have computers without Active Directory and how to implement those, and how to, not efficiently, because there's really no efficient way to do that without Active Directory, but how to do it and how to manage it, and even how to use third-party programs to help you automate it. And we also talked about the importance of third-party program updates. So let's get started with day 3. Who am I and why am I giving this course? Well, my name is Marley. I'm the CEO of Network Computer Solutions. Our primary office is located in Warsaw, Indiana. I began my IT security career in 1989 while serving in the United States Marine Corps. While in the Marine Corps, I was deployed to Operation Desert Storm in Saudi Arabia. And as a result of that, I was put in charge with a unit that was securing the data and keeping databases and keeping track of all the troops, certain parts of the troops in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Bahrain. So with that, we've maintained a database including financial information and personnel information and a lot of secret information about people. And my job was to make sure that data never got leaked, breached, or lost. And the fact that we were working in a harsh environment, most of our computers and infrastructure was in tents and hooches from the front lines to the back. We had to make sure that we were protected and backed up in case sand or heat or something happens to those computers. It was critical that we had all that data accessible when we needed it. So today, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to work for a private enterprise, a small business, and I realized that small businesses just don't have the level of protection from data loss and security that we had in the Marine Corps or you have in large enterprises. So I set out to solve that. And I founded Network Computer Solutions with the intent of providing those services to small businesses so that they could be as secure and safe as large enterprises are. Now, it wasn't an easy battle. It was very tough. But now we've got a system in place, and it's our mission to make sure our small business clients are not affected by these major attacks, they don't leak data, and they never have to call their client and tell them that they lost their data. Today, I lead a troop of cyber techs and engineers, and we manage IT environments and security for enterprises all over the country. Our clients range in all kinds of industries, but we have a lot of clients in the agriculture, healthcare, and financial sectors. If you think that we could help you and you need assistance with your IT technology and your security, reach out to us. Be happy to sit down and talk to you and get an idea of where you're at and where we need to go. So let's get started now with day 3. So first of all, antivirus and malware is a requirement for all devices on your network. It doesn't matter if it's a Windows desktop, a Windows server, a mobile device, a Linux box, or even a Mac. They all require some sort of third-party anti-malware, antivirus protection, with the simple exception of Apple iOS. they don't allow antivirus to be installed because they don't give any program that level of access to their core operating system. And they've been very good about separating the program data from the operating system, so it's very unlikely that you would get a virus attack from using an Apple iOS device, like an iPad or a Windows an Apple smartphone. But the problem is that people overlook the fact is that mobile devices such as Androids are very susceptible to viruses and malware, and they must be protected. So that's why I'm saying you should put your antivirus malware protection on all devices, including mobile, because your Android devices could be a big risk to your network. Today, the endpoints are the primary targets for virus attacks. Most of our data lives on the endpoints, and they're also sometimes the weakest part of the network. So 95% of all breaches originate at the computer endpoint themselves. Now, there's different types of antivirus and malware protection available. We're going to go into a lot of that. But the first thing is, do you want to get a free product or a paid product? You know, there's a big difference in the two. Most companies that have a paid product offer a free product. It's meant, I believe, for a way that you can get experience to using their product, so then you can come back and buy the paid version. There are a lot of limitations. I've listed a few here on the screen for you that you can pick through. I'm not going to recommend one over the other. They all seem to be pretty decent for the price. I mean, well, you get what you pay for sometimes. But let me tell you the differences between a paid product and a free product, just so you know. For one, a free product is usually not licensed for business use. We've seen them used in businesses, which means you're violating terms and conditions, which means you could get in a little bit of trouble if you get caught. Support on free products is usually limited to online forums, or we've seen sometimes no support at all. Updates normally have to be downloaded and installed manually. Sometimes they take out the ability to automate your antivirus protection when you buy, or I guess when you download the free product. It's an incentive to buy the licensed product. You know, virus scans also most of the time can't be performed automatically. They must be performed manually using the free product. A lot of times we've noticed with free antivirus products, they just don't cover everything you need. They typically require multiple programs to be installed to make sure you do your viruses, your malware, your ransomware, or whatever. It's not usually a single product. But if we get into paid products, we like to call it enterprise antivirus. They're designed for commercial use and they're licensed for that purpose. The premium support you get normally includes telephone support if you need it, and also 24/7 email support, in addition to the basic support you get from forums as well. Updates typically are applied automatically, and most of the enterprise solutions give you a dashboard that you can log into to view all your endpoints at once. Think about if you have a network with 50 to 100 or 500 endpoints and you know, mobile devices and everything else, and you're trying to manage to make sure that no devices go unprotected. If you have to do it manually, it's very time consuming, almost impossible to do. But through a dashboard, through the enterprise product, you can see the exception. It'll flag you and notify you when one device fails. Because one device is critical in your network security. There's situations like recently with the Petya virus, an example, the Petya malware. It had the ability, if the computer was patched correctly, the latest operating system patches, it couldn't penetrate and affect that machine. What it could do, though, was find one machine in your network that was not patched correctly and infect that computer. Once it was infecting that computer, it would make a horizontal movement across the network, and it could attack those computers that were fully patched. So it's very important that you make sure that every computer on your network is fully updated and patched, and have that enterprise product to monitor that. Virus and malware scans can be scheduled in the enterprise products, meaning that if there is a virus or if a threat, the program will automatically just run a virus scan for you or be scheduled on a regular basis. And the last thing is, when we use a next generation antivirus endpoint protection, we're going to talk about that a lot of detail in this presentation, this course today. You'll usually find that one tool can typically do all the work if all the other tools combined, and sometimes even better than all the tools combined. There's also multiple types of antivirus. And we're going to get pretty deep into this, so make sure you take some notes, follow along. If you need to, pause us and pick us back up, because we're going to make cover a lot of information very quickly, and we're also going to cover it in pretty much detail. So you need to do a little research to understand what you're getting into. If you have questions about specifics about your antivirus compared to next generation, then you may want to comment in the Facebook group, ask some questions, and somebody will answer it for you. Or maybe somebody in the community will know more, and they'll share with you as well. Basically, traditional antivirus solutions rely on a signature-based system to remove viruses, which means they have to identify a virus after it's leaked. Then we have to write updates for it and release that to all the computers that use that antivirus. And that just can't keep up, because if you look at this chart here, there are 390,000 new malicious codes released every day. And if you drill into this and look at what I'm talking about, on the left side is 1984 and the right side is 2016. And this shows how many threats were released on malware during that year. If you look at it here, it's steadily grown every year from about 2008 on. In the last few years, it's seen substantial growth. A traditional antivirus just can't keep up with that type of growth, that type of virus warnings. Typically, what you'll see is the antivirus solutions have to be quick. They have to be able to detect antiviruses immediately, or viruses immediately, act on it, mitigate it, remove it quickly, because typically the virus strains, the variants we're seeing, don't stick around very long. They stick around long enough to hit the attack, get the damage, plant the program on your computer, and then they're gone before your antivirus even detects them. If you look at this chart here, how many days, on the bottom is how many days over a 6-month period that these virus strains were detected, and the percentage of the viruses, a percentage of all malware. If you look, almost 50% of all malware was detected and actually active basically one day and maybe 2 days, which meant that at the time the traditional antivirus detected it, wrote a command to fix it, and wrote it and updated all their antiviruses in the field, there's a good chance that that attack is gone. They've already made a variant of it and they released it again. So it's constantly trying to play catch up to remove all the viruses. 4 out of 5 of those viruses only lasted a week, so you got to be careful and make sure you have something that's real time looking for a behavioral based attack and able to stop that attack. What is the difference between, I talk about traditional signature-based antivirus programs and what I refer to as a next generation product? It's behavioral-based. And let me explain what that is. Traditional antivirus is about 25 years old. We've seen very little innovation since about 1999. My opinion, that's when antivirus died. Luckily, we have next generation, but traditionally, I think there's very little innovation even being performed in any traditional antivirus programs. It looks for known hashes and threats and depends a lot on signature-based threats. And if it doesn't identify it, it can't fix it. It's not user-friendly. Traditionally, antivirus uses a lot of CPU and RAM. They're bandwidth hogs. They're always uploading, downloading, and they also use a lot of resources during scans, which means if your computer was detected with a threat, it's going to scan immediately, and when it does, it just slows down the production altogether, and you're going to sit and wait on that while you try to work. Imagine that happening on your network with 50 to 100 people being detected, and all at once the entire network slows down to a crawl because they can't keep up. That is common with traditional antivirus solutions. And normally you're very vulnerable to zero-day. What is zero-day attacks? Well, a zero-day is the time between the time that the antivirus or the virus is identified and the time that the antivirus manufacturers write a fix for it and update the current antivirus program that you're running. There's usually a day or two in there. And when that happens, you're very vulnerable because without the updated signature files that identify the virus, you could be attacked during that time and your computer may not even know it. It may attack it leave it on your computer, and then maybe prompt it later to actually activate. There's all kinds of things that can happen during a zero-day attack. Typically, to get totally protected when you use a traditional antivirus, you have to use multiple programs. And the reason that is because traditional antivirus do one thing pretty well. They identify and remove viruses. It doesn't take into account ransomware and active attacks like malware. And typically these traditional antivirus programs don't include advanced features like maybe a local firewall or something we're seeing more of, which is people watching your webcam when you're not wanting them to, any kind of protection to notify you when that's happening. And that's something you're going to see more of in the near future. Next generation, NGEP we call it, is new technology is constantly being innovated. It's so new that it's something, it seems like every week or every month we're seeing improvements and new technologies are released. It's great. It's an exciting part of the security space. It analyzes file and system behavior, which means that typically we'll see activity before the virus has a name and released. During a recent attack, our Security Operations Center notified us and stopped threats before they even launched, meaning that they were not identified by traditional antivirus. The system that we used identified it as a threat because the behavior it was doing in our system blocked the executables and made sure they didn't operate. And then a few days later, there's a big announcement of a big international virus, and we were already 2 or 3 days ahead of the attack. Traditional antivirus would have been waiting for that announcement to write a fix for it. We use EDR, Endpoint Detection Response, to monitor all activity on the system so that we can also do an immediate response, immediate action if needed. Next generation endpoint protection goes a step beyond traditional antivirus. It takes automated actions to prevent attacks and also remediate attacks. We're able to do a lot of things on computers if we see an attack. One, we can stop the process from running. We can stop the thread. We can stop the application. It even has the ability to disconnect the infected computer from your network so that it can no longer affect or infect anything else on the network. You then have to go in and manually remove the malware threat. But that's much better than the alternative, which would mean your computer would be able to infect everything else in your network. Some people tell you that when you get a malware or a virus attack, the best thing to do is to hold the power button in and power off your computer so that you don't allow it to function. I don't believe that's the thing to do because some programs are written to be executable on boot up or startup. So the worst thing you can do on a malware or a virus attack is to power off your computer and then power back on. The best thing you can do is either unplug your network cable in the event you get one, or better yet, our next generation endpoint protection product will automatically disconnect that cable for you and disconnect the computer from communicating with other computers to protect the entire network. I've also heard that people believe that next generation endpoint protection is a step above traditional antivirus, and that you need both. You need something underlying that's looking for file level access protection, and you need a next generation to protect behavior. I don't believe that. The next generation endpoint protection products that are on the market today, all the leaders, according to Gartner, they all also are a direct replacement for traditional antivirus. There's no reason to run two because you're going to have a lot of resources being used, a lot of memory, a lot of RAM, running two antiviruses when actually one will do all the detection anyways. And I'll tell you a story in a minute about how that happened to us and now why we believe this wholeheartedly that we can use a next generation endpoint product instead of traditional antivirus. Nice thing too that we're seeing with the new next generation product is it has a firewall type feature to protect the computer in case it's off, working off site somewhere. Also, we're seeing more protection now from webcam type attacks to where people remotely are turning on your webcam and viewing what you're doing and not turning on the light. That's a very common attack right now, And we're seeing our next generation products actually pick up those attacks and stop them before they even become active. Antivirus is no match for the new landscape threat. Today, there's multiple things. There's live attacks, and there's exploits, and there's malware. Simple malware relies on ransomware and trojans and backdoors. They're fileless, they're memory-based, but they're actively running, and you have to have something that's out there actively looking and running resident on your computer to find those threats and stop them. We're also seeing exploits from specific documents. An example, Microsoft Word documents have been infected with a virus recently that when executed, it's a script that runs, will infect your entire computer from a Word document that somebody shares with you. So be aware that you got to look for all these types of threats. And then the last one is script-based threats. These are live. I witnessed one of these on one of my clients' servers, and it was very scary. We had a client that had a terminal server, meaning there was about 25 people utilizing one server to run all their applications. We started seeing performance hits and got notified. Within a matter of about a minute, our SOC, our Security Operations Center, sent us an email ticket and a phone call that said, hey guys, what the heck is going on at this server? Here's what we picked up. They've already stopped it. Before they even called us, they sent a script to stop all processes, kill the PowerShell, and let the machine continue to operate. But what was happening was one of the users had gone to an affected website, they clicked on a link, and they initiated a PowerShell, which is a hidden command in Windows that went out and started trying to encrypt our files. It then hid itself behind valid programs. It was pretty ingenious way to launch a PowerShell virus. And we would never have seen it because nothing shows up on your screen when that happens. But we had two antiviruses on that server at that time. One was a traditional antivirus, and we chose a leader in the antivirus world for that, and we had our new version, our next generation product on there as well. The current antivirus never picked up on the threat, ever. We finally removed it a few days later when the client agreed that we didn't need it if it wasn't doing anything. Our next generation product picked up on it by behavior, immediately stopped the resources, notified our SOC. They then made sure it all stopped, remediated, removed the threat, and then notified us via ticket that it was complete. That's perfect, and that's the product that we recommend everybody have. I can't swear by it enough because it saved our butt. When you start searching for a next generation antivirus or endpoint protection product, there are 6 things that must have in order to be a replacement for antivirus. 1, it must support file-based malware prevention, which is traditional malware prevention. It must look at files, scan the files as they're sitting, not in movement. Then as they're activated, they also need to scan them then as well. That's kind of traditional antivirus, and your next gen should also do that as well. It should look for dynamic exploit detection. We talked about, those memory-intensive, memory-based applications like I just told you that attacked our server. There was no infected files. It was all just dynamic and running in memory. It has to be able to protect those in real time. It should also look for advanced malware protection. Those are the unknown attacks that are targeted to your server. Those are attacks that exploit no static indicators of compromise. There are no files infected. There are no extra files added to your network. These are programs that run in memory, unannounced, that are doing nothing but starting to encrypt your files or send your files out of your network. You have to pick up on those as well. Mitigation. Next generation endpoint protection must mitigate immediately, killing all processes that start up that aren't needed. It also to possibly up to disconnecting the infected PC or server from your network so that you can manually remove it later if you need to, but also to remove it from the network so it cannot impact other computers. That's a must if you're going to use next generation antivirus protection. It must also remediate, meaning that it needs to put the system back to the state it was before the attack. All the files that were infected need to be rolled back to the previous state, and then a log created to notify us of which files were infected in case something couldn't be rolled back. And last but not least, there has to be forensics done for every attack. What that means is, you hear about forensics when you think about, police reports or murder investigations. When you hear about forensics, they come in, they look at the details of what happened, the fingerprints, and all the details of the crime scene. And that is what happens with a next generation endpoint protection product. We look at what actually took place. Where did the file come in? Who activated it? What did it do once it's activated? Did it infect certain files? And did it try to send those files out? Were they encrypted? If so, what other files were involved as well? And we get a full 360-degree view of the attack. It's a lightweight, autonomous agent that runs on the computer. Doesn't take many resources, but it's constantly monitoring. And the server agent sits kind of silently out of band, meaning that it's there if it needs it, but it doesn't pull in the resources and take all that memory that it needs to run unless it's really called for by the endpoint protection product. Then it gives us a full context search of everything that took place. If you look at this here, this chart, this is an example of a malware attack that took place on a server. If you can see, the first attack came in from services.exe and then also servicehost.exe. Those are very common programs that run on all Windows servers, and they're very exploitable. The problem with that is you can't just stop those services from running when they get attacked, and you can't tell they're getting attacked because you look at the device manager on a computer. Go ahead, try it. Look at that. You'll see a lot of services.exe and servicehost.exe running. Almost every program and service that runs on a server or a PC utilizes the same services. You may see multiple copies of the same program running. How are you going to know which one's good, which one's bad? You don't. And that's why these viruses are allowed to operate and spread in the wild, because no one knows what to stop. Our next generation product does. It looks for the behavior of these programs and then it stops it. This shows you right here every file that was attacked, what happened to it, what the final result was, and then at the end we show you where we unencrypt those files and put them back to the original condition. If you don't have that type of protection today, you are missing out on the ultimate piece of protection you need to run your business. Advanced endpoint protection really needs to be very deep. It needs to cover a large area. What I mean by that is common threats, which are block files and applications. It needs to be able to whitelist and blacklist on the fly. If it detects maybe a website that's bad, or maybe a malicious attack, it needs to be able to stop those on the fly. But as we move up in the threat level, you get into file-based malware as well. It needs to really truly understand what a static protection is. Look for files that are infected and be able to block those and maybe put them back to a previously infected state. And that's a static analysis. It's looking at all the data on the computer at all times. Almost any virus product can do that. When we really get creative and get very useful, have a lot of value, is we get into the very top of this. If you look at this chart, the top of this shows APTs, Advanced Persistent Threat. An APT is a type of attack that was used to attack Target, an example. Look it up. If you don't understand about that attack, look it up. Very big, millions of people affected. There was a small piece of ransomware that was deployed onto the computers at Target. It was deployed not even from somebody at Target. It was from a third-party network that came in from a contractor who monitored their heating cooling system. They connected through that. Someone attacked the heating cooling vendor, which then had access into Target's network, and they laid this APT on the computers. What happened was it was fileless and memoryless, so your traditional antivirus, anti-malware did not detect it at all. It was memory-based only. And what it did was every time someone swiped a credit card at all the targets around the country, it would grab the credit card data, intercept it, encrypt it themselves, and then send it off to the criminals. Sounds crazy, but it happens. And it happens every day. Think about this. The criminals They grab the unencrypted data from the credit card machine through the point of sale application at Target, but they take the time to encrypt that data themselves before they send it out. Why is that? They do that because they don't want to be detected. They know what antivirus and firewalls detect, and they encapsulate their package, their stolen data, into a way that we can't detect it normally. We detected that type of virus all the time using advanced persistent threats. And you need to be aware that it is happening and that your traditional antivirus probably isn't picking up anything. I would go as far to say, if you're running traditional antivirus, it's doing you no good. Install a new generation, next generation product and remove that thing. You'll get more performance out of your computer normally and you'll be better protected. So if you're going to shop for an endpoint protection product, we've covered all the elements you need, the 6 areas you need to cover. Make sure they do all those. Don't settle for anything less. But what are the true benefits of a next generation endpoint protection product? Well, the first one is superior protection against threats without performance overhead. Sounds like a lot of words. What that really means is you get a high level support. You protect yourself from all these big threats without having to run 4 or 5 different programs that just kill the processes on your computer and make your computers run very slowly. We also get automated threat mitigation at machine speed, which means as fast as your processor and computer can process the request, as soon as those viruses attack, we can knock them out that quick at the speed of your machine. We also give you a visualization of real-time attacks in forensics. If you don't get that, then get a new product, because you need to know, especially if you're a compliance-based organization that has to report all threats or all ransomware attacks, then you need to be sure that you have forensics so that you can present that to whoever the government body is who's going to audit you based on your attack level. You want a simplified dashboard. Simply said, you've got 100 computers, 5 computers, 1,000 computers, whatever it is. You don't want to go to each one of those and make sure that it's being updated. And you also don't want to depend on the end user to tell you. You want a simplified dashboard that notifies you when something doesn't update correctly. You want to seamlessly adapt against latest threats. You don't want to have to wait for signatures to happen. Like a traditional antivirus, it could take a day or 2 or more. You want to be able to detect things on the fly and adapt to the latest threats when they come out now, not when they come out and get identified later. We can also cut your total cost of ownership by 5x. I know. How can it be that we can have such a large amount of protection and much of a better product, but still cut your total cost of ownership by 5 times? It can be done. Call me, reach out to me, comment in the Facebook group, whatever it takes to get a hold of me, and we will talk about what it takes to lower your total cost of ownership. You're spending way too much trying to manage multiple programs, multiple threat levels, and your risk level stays high. So let's talk about how we can save you money as well. We also want to have one product that protects all your endpoints no matter what flavor they happen to be. Whether it happens to be Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, whatever else is out there. We want to make sure that we protect all the devices at one time. Our product, Next Generation Endpoint Protection that we offer, does that for you. And if you're a managed client of ours, we deploy it and we manage it for you so you don't have to worry about it. It's one less thing a busy business guy like you has to worry about. And the key is it has to be easily deployable across all platforms in large environments. If you've got multiple sites with hundreds or thousands of endpoints, you don't want to have to worry about, did it get deployed to every endpoint? Did I miss one? What about the mobile workforce? A lot of us today, including my company, we have engineers and employees that work around the country. And they're always working remotely. How do I know that my data is safe on those mobile people's laptops? How do I know that the sales staff that supports your company is safe? It's easy for somebody to use a home computer or a personal laptop, travel around, do work for your company, do sales meetings and type reports and all kinds of stuff, but yet they could be unprotected. We want to make sure that everything is deployed correctly and everything is protected, and there's no stone left unturned when it comes to antivirus and endpoint protection. Well, that was a great session. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. I really want your feedback. If there's something I didn't cover well, or maybe something I covered too well, or you have questions, email me or comment in the Facebook group or on the page where you got this course. And I want to learn from you as much as you learn from me. Today we learned that antivirus and anti-malware is a requirement for all devices. It doesn't matter if it's a Windows server, a Windows desktop, a Mac, a Linux, a mobile device. It doesn't matter. Everything has to have it. We also talked about free versus paid. I can summarize it: never use free. Easily solved. And the last thing is, we talked about signature-based traditional antivirus that's been around for 25 years and untouched, and next generation endpoint protection, which we use every day, that will go way above your current antivirus, protect your network and your data. So I thank you for joining me. I look forward to hearing from you on feedback. I look forward to seeing you on day 4. Make sure you make a lot of notes, print everything out, put it in a binder, and just as you go each day, go through a checklist, make sure you get it all complete, and then we'll see you again tomorrow on day 4. Tomorrow we're going to cover Wi-Fi security. It's a very broad area. We're going to cover all facets so you are protected when you use public Wi-Fi or you have people using your Wi-Fi in your office. See you in day 4.